Good afternoon, Westway LAB, and greetings from Finland. As you can see, it's already getting dark here, but I'm super excited to join this event again, even though not this time in the beautiful city of Guimarães. Today's session is called Metadata Folklore, probably the coolest conference session title ever. Before we start, quickly something about me, if you don't know. I'm an innovation specialist, researcher, advisor, ecosystem and community builder based in Helsinki, Finland. And I work as senior advisor on innovation and business inside at TEOSTO, the rights management organization for music publishers and songwriters in Finland. And I've been leading the work of several Nordic innovation labs, developing future solutions for rights management, including also TEOSTO Futures Lab. I'm also the co-founder of Next Stage Challenge, which is a pan-European innovation initiative formed during COVID-19 pandemic, seeking new solutions for digital live music experience. I'm the chair of the Copyright Infrastructure Development Working Group for Data Practices, appointed by the Ministry of Education and Culture of Finland. Also a guest lecturer of Music Management Studies program of Arkade University of Applied Sciences in Helsinki, and an expert advisor for Music Finland's Fast Track Music Business Accelerator. I wanted to start today's presentation with a wrestling analogy. Music business, especially when dealing with rights, royalties, and data, is a continuous fight these days. One of the reasons for this is that music industry is becoming more and more complex with growing data, rights, and payment flows between different industry stakeholders. And basically, data is becoming a fundamental source of competitive advantage in music, just as in other sectors, actually. There are a few drivers of change happening for this, basically about technology. First of all, decentralization, the current wave of digitalization promising to decentralize most of the core aspects of music rights management. Machine learning and artificial intelligence, algorithms handling complicated business processes. The more the better the data, the faster the machines learn. Interoperability, meaning emerging common protocols for music industry interoperability, enabling linkages between different data islands. And at the same time, real-time data processing. Still, current processing times can be very long, and in the future, speed is becoming one of the main competitive factors. In general, the problems related to music business are caused by the fact that the works and right holders are often not being properly identified in the digital environment, and this is due to missing or erroneous metadata. There are many standards and industry-specific identifiers for works and recordings and right holders, but however, they lack interoperability in a broader context, and this is resulting in high transaction costs and a lost revenue for artists and songwriters. This is where we enter to the fascinating world of metadata, data about data. At first, it might sound like an insignificant little thing, but consider the following. Every time that the user searches for a song, for example, on Spotify, every time a collection society attributes performance royalties, every time YouTube's algorithm queues up a song, metadata is at play. It's the oil that makes our industry spin. It's at the core of the music industry. Musicians miss out on royalties. Songwriters and engineers don't get the credit they deserve. Streaming services have developed algorithms to make sure that the top of the catalog looks clean. But once you take a deep dive on the long tail, all sorts of errors start falling through the cracks. So what is metadata in the context of music and other cultural content sectors? In a very general way, it can be divided into 3 different categories. The first of them being descriptive metadata. Basically, it details the contents of the recording with text tags like song title, release date, track number, performing artist, cover art, main genre, and so on. And it has about a billion different applications, and it's used every time someone needs to query, organize, sort, or present the music, whether it's to put together an artist page on Spotify or build an organized music library or identify a radio spin. Descriptive metadata issues are the most visible to the end user. If you've been using any streaming service long enough, chances are that you've stumbled upon the errors resulting from corrupted descriptions. Think of multiple artists' songs mashed on the same Spotify artist page, misspelled song names, mixed up release dates, etc. The second category is the one that really keeps the industry spinning. After all, most of us like to get paid, right? We are talking about ownership metadata. Whether we're talking digital streams, airplay, or movie sync, numerous parties, from performing artists to lyricists, producers, songwriters, will share the revenue, hence the need for ownership metadata, specifying the contractual agreements behind the release for the purposes of royalty calculation and allocation. Ownership metadata is there to make sure that each and every side taking part in music creation process is paid correctly. But given the complex nature of splits behind the most tracks, as well as differences in legislation across the globe, getting the consumer's dollar divided up correctly is no small feature in itself. Now, if we add missing or inconsistent metadata in the mix, the issue becomes 10 times more complicated. Ownership metadata issues hit where it hurts the most. A human error here, a database glitch there, and a songwriter can miss out tens of thousands of euros. In music industry, we use identification codes like ISWC, International Standard Working Code, which is generated to all new registered musical works. ISRC codes, International Standard Recording Codes, which are generated to recordings. IPI, Interested Parties Information Code for authors and publishers, and IPN, International Performer Numbers for artists and performers. Also, ISNI, the International Standard Name Identifier, is becoming more and more used in music industry. There are also new identifiers like ISCC, International Standard Content Code, which is a blockchain-based identifier that can be automatically generated for digital content. It's already seeing usage in different content types, but it might be also more relevant to music in the future. In a multimedia world, we are seeing more and more rich content where it makes sense to add identification also for other content types to the mix, like ISON, International Standard Audiovisual Number, ISSN for publications, ISBN for books, or DOI, Digital Object Identifier, which is also used for films, but also for pictures. In music business, where information still is pretty much siloed, even though a lot of progress is done, different databases have their own unique identifiers, which are in many cases actually much more important for their business than the ones that I just mentioned. And this is one of the reasons that is keeping the industry fragmented. The third metadata category is discovery or recommendation metadata. If the first two types of metadata are kind of objective in sense, there's just one real song name, there's just one list of songs credits. Recommendation metadata is different. In its core, it consists subjective tags that aim to reflect the contents of the recording and describe how it sounds, mood labels, generative genre tags, song similarity scores. Recommendation metadata is used to make a meaningful connection between tracks and power the recommendation engines. And of course, other types of recommendation metadata can be used to enhance music discovery as well, like biometric data or location data, where actually a lot of interesting innovation is happening right now. Discovery is a huge differentiator between the streaming services, and that's why recommendation metadata tags are usually proprietary data that doesn't travel the industry as descriptive and ownership metadata does. Instead, each platform will have its own approach to recommendation metadata generation and its own database behind the recommendation algorithm. So, if description and ownership metadata is created on the artist's end, recommendation metadata is usually produced by digital service providers. Discovery metadata is the fastest developing subset of the entire landscape. New tech is pushing the borders of discovery, calling for new solutions and approaches for recommendation. Just think about how smart speakers will change the way we access and discover music. Voice-mediated music consumption turns users from structured text queries to amorphous requests along the lines like, Alexa, play me something like yada, yada, yada. That's something which will bring new challenges to the recommendation engines of streaming platforms and search engines like Google. It won't be enough to find similar songs and generate radio-like song queues. They will have to figure out what's the best song to play to that exact person at that exact time. The way we approach this challenge is going to affect the livelihood of thousands of artists and music professionals and shaping the future of music industry for years to come. So what should music professionals do about it? Last year, TEOSTO, the Lisbon Council, and ESADE Business School based in Barcelona published a report on data-driven innovation in the music industry called A Symphony Not a Solo, which tackled these current problems in music and also seeked answers and examples from other industries. In music, there's been several initiatives to promote data collaboration and sharing, namely on the music repertoire and ownership. But data sharing in the music industry usually happens either through the voluntary initiative of the platforms or through collaborative initiatives still limited in scope and in progress, focusing mainly on the music repertoire. This piecemeal approach is sufficient to grasp low-hanging fruits of innovation, but not the new disruptive products and services that we probably can't even imagine yet. Music is increasingly digitized, and the future innovation of the music industry will largely rely on accessing and reusing the widest range of data. Data silos will still slow down innovation and make it costlier and ultimately stifle it. The answer to this is not radical openness agenda. The choice on data sharing is not simply between open and closed data. There's a wide variety of options in between based on limiting those who can access the data. Nowadays, opening up data is a strategic operation which includes the identification in dialogue with potential reusers of the most valuable data set to be released, curation of data and metadata to ensure their reusability, and publication of data through real-time interactive services such as APIs, and also stimulation of reuse through hackathons and prizes. Basically, data can be shared based on level of aggregations. Superstar datasets are highly granular, but they can be shared openly at different levels of aggregations. Datasets are typically real-time, but they can be shared more openly with delay. Full data sets might cover billions of data points, but partial views of the data sets or with limited metadata can be offered for free or under specific conditions. Data can also be shared with nonprofits for research purposes, but they can be also shared with other actors in the value chain with a contained risk for competitiveness. And also, it's possible to just give access to data without data sharing. Open data is already a flagship initiative for public sector, but it's increasingly taken up by private companies too. But as we've seen, open data is only one of the options. And there are other opportunities for sharing through discriminatory type of access. In particular, as shown over the last years, different solutions have emerged across many industries, which can be categorized in 3 different groups: open data initiatives, discriminatory data sharing initiatives with competitors, and discriminatory initiatives with other players in the value chain. Surprisingly, these initiatives, often falling under the name data commons, data collaborative, industrial data platform, etc., they are emerging particularly in intellectual property intensive industries, for example, like pharmaceutical industry. From the perspective of music industry, there seems to be an experimentation gap with respect to other sectors to make better use of the full range of options for greater data sharing and reuse. If intellectual property intensive sectors where competition is fierce and R&D expenditure is high, like pharma, are sharing data in pre-competitive platforms, so why shouldn't this be possible in music industry too? To start tackling the data challenges, it's important to understand the different layers. Some decisions are made outside and there's really nothing much to do about it, but there are loads of action to take as well. My gut feeling says that music sector can also nationally or in smaller collaborations focus on the practical side of data exchange and also to develop data ecosystems or data networks. In a nutshell, data ecosystem is a group of entities who want to create new business by exchanging data. These ecosystems are needed to move information smoothly from organization to another and to create economic benefits for all participants of the network. Siloed data can be shared, merged with other types of data, and also exploited by as many entities as possible through data ecosystems. This is eventually speeding up innovation, new business, new partnerships, and also creation of better services and products. This February, European Commission published the new European Data Strategy. Over the next 5 years, the Commission is going to focus on 3 key objectives to promote technological solutions that will help Europe pursue its own way towards a digital transformation that works for the benefit of people and respects also our fundamental values. Technology that works for people, a fair and competitive economy, and an open, democratic, and sustainable society. Funnily, a lot of our earlier thinking is quite much in line with the vision of European Commission, which is also about to create a single market for data, where data can flow within the EU and across sectors for the benefit of all. European rules, especially on data protection, are fully respected. And European Union will become an attractive, secure, and dynamic data economy. There is also a plan about pooling European data from different key sectors with EU-wide common and interoperable data spaces. This is one of the high-impact projects of the Commission for the next 5 years to develop common European data spaces and interconnecting cloud infrastructures. What they intend is to fund these common interoperable data spaces in a number of strategic sectors. Such spaces aim at overcoming legal and technical barriers to data sharing across organizations by combining the necessary tools and infrastructures and addressing issues for trust, for example, by way of common rules developed for the space. These spaces are going to include deployment of data sharing tools and platforms, the creation of data governance frameworks, improving the availability, the quality, and also the interoperability of data, both in domain-specific settings and also across sectors. You might also already know the answer. There is no European data space for music or even the cultural sector. But the positive thing is that you don't actually need a data space to start sharing data. Next, I'm gonna give you a few examples what we've been up to working under TEOSTO Futures Lab during the last few years to make some progress in these specific questions. In Finland, the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra is right now supporting heavily data ecosystem building, and we are planning with them to invite the Finnish music and tech players together to create a first version of Finnish music data ecosystem. We've also developed a number of APIs for third-party access, mainly for work information. We built interfaces and tools for API usage, for example, together with Kendra.io and the Blumen Horizon project, which are used by our clients. We've also tested facial recognition and biosensor technology during music festivals to create additional data layers created from emotions and to build prototypes for new services. And we've also tested and piloted, first in the world, real-time generation of metadata related to a live music performance with Music Tech Fest. And we also have shared metadata for testing instant payments for right holders using blockchain wallets together with Revelator and BMAT. This year, we also developed an API for identity validation to be able to receive in the future work registration information on the go from studio and digital audio workstations rather than waiting for music creators to register work. This is something that we are currently working on with a company called Session from UK. And we've also organized and joined numerous hackathons and basically trying to stimulate data usage for innovative purposes. If we then think about the future of music, let's say in 10 years' time, there's already a number of exciting things happening which will not be possible without metadata. If we think about when Beastie Boys released Paul's Boutique in 1989, nobody actually thought about licensing issues with samples. Today, sample libraries are already a common thing, but splitting a musical work to the same level for compositions is actually something which is coming next. And we're actually cooking something pretty cool in this area as well, hopefully happening next year. New ways of attaching music into games will require new metadata practices with gaming companies in order to scale it big. The few big examples we have seen this year are just the start. Hologram artists are already here, but when they start to play autonomously music, more like, for example, avatar actors in a movie, this is going to get messy as well. AI-generated music is already here, but we're going to see more and more examples of AI generating endless versions and context-aware remixes of compositions in the future, which is going to require new types of adaptability from metadata practices. The already mentioned emotion data capturing techniques are actually already quite widely used in the film industry. But this is something which is becoming more and more used in music industry as well. And it's going to have an effect how we are going to price music in the future. One possible future for music is also a post-format world where static tracks, which we are used to listen nowadays, are in no way anymore the major way of music consumption. A continuous personalized soundtrack of your life is probably not even far away from today. Elon Musk already promised to stream music directly into our brain very soon. This is something very exciting as well, also a bit scary. There's going to be new format types. How would you attach metadata into an aerosol spray? What Massive Attack did with the Mezzanine special edition was, in a way, a huge publicity stunt, but it demonstrated pretty well what's going to be possible in the future. At the same time, we can already turn data from galaxies far away into sound with data sonification and learn to fight against cancer by exploring musical patterns from health data. For creative purposes, these kinds of technologies are still something yet to be explored. Still, innovation is often hard work. As an industry, we should take care that the groundwork is done properly to unleash creativity with the help of future technologies. And this is actually all about metadata. So, to conclude, place data at the center of your business strategy, develop internal capacity, share data, and promote innovation across the value chain. Take care of you and your data. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, I think this is a perfect time. You can use the chat for that. There's a question from Andrew. Do you think the upcoming deployment of the MLC in the US will go well? Well, that's a good question. I really do hope so, but to be honest, it will require a lot of work to make that happen in US, but I'm trying to feel positive about that. Hi, Joao. Joao is asking if it's possible to have a unique European data framework platform. I really don't think so. I believe that the answer in the future is to build meaningful connections between different databases rather than trying to build a big one for Europe. Of course, there are some entities right now trying to make something like that happen. There's a project going on named Music Now, and one of their aims is to build a rights management platform for the whole Europe for handling online music rights management. But I think it's super far away to happen. And there's also a lot of open questions on how it could actually work. Andrew is asking about usage of AI in analysis in music data. AI is very heavily used in analysis. Of course, the way that, for example, big DSPs are building their recommendation engines, there's a lot of AI involved. Joao is asking if AI and Spotify-like algorithms can shut down small music projects and bands. If you mean that if it's possible that artificial intelligence can be used to not include or recommend smaller bands to big audiences, I think this is something which is already happening, and it's a big issue for smaller nationalities and also for niche genres and small languages. And I do believe that actually it might be that in the next 10 years, young people are using more and more voice search algorithms, and this is the space where this is going to be even more complex, because the way that voice search algorithms work, which are based on different languages, can get quite messy if all the possible languages are being implemented into these systems. And I already know that this has been a problem for some Finnish companies trying to deal with Google in this area. By the way, where are you guys from? Are you all from Portugal in the audience, or is there somebody from somewhere else? Austin. Nice. I was supposed to be there for South by in March, but never happened. Hello, Poland. Andrew is asking how much innovation do I think is being driven by the COVID times? That's actually a good question. One might think that because of the huge decline we are seeing in the music industry, there is no money available to do anything, which is true in a sense, but at the same time, I think this situation is something that has forced us to make something. And one good example is when we put out the Next Stage Challenge initiative last March, together with partners from Sweden, Germany, France, Belgium, Italy, and the UK. And it was probably the first time when an music industry hackathon and an accelerator program that size was done fully virtually. We had 435 attendees from 39 different countries involved, and we actually managed to get together almost 80 mentors, basically the biggest names when it comes to music or music and tech involved for free to help in this thing. And in that sense, it was remarkable. And I do hope that we are able to continue that work probably next year. By the way, if there are any performing artists around, it would be super interesting to hear about your experiences this year, and if you have been exploring virtual performances in any way. Misia is answering that yes, they have tested out live streaming one time with a partner, not ticketed, and next one was ticketed. It seems to be still quite problematic to monetize live streaming, even though there are already a number of companies working on that field. It's still mainly about doing free streams through big platforms like Instagram or Twitch or Facebook. One cool thing that I saw coming from Finland in this area was done by a VR company called Zone. They basically build a virtual version of downtown Helsinki, and one of the biggest acts in our country performed virtually there, and anybody could create their own avatar and go to the virtual Helsinki to watch the show. And it was also possible to watch it via YouTube, but I think there were almost 700,000 people watching the gig online on May the 1st. And for a small country like ours, it was quite amazing. But it was not a ticketed event. We still have time for a quick question if anybody has something in their mind. I added a link to the chat about the virtual gig that I mentioned, if you're interested. Okay, my friends, I think the time is up. Westway Lab, Nuno, and others, thanks so much for having me. I'm sitting alone in an empty office, so it's not exactly the same as it would have been in Guimarães, but maybe next year with better luck. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.